Somewhere in a climate-controlled vault at Yale University, behind glass and under lock, sits a book that has defeated every codebreaker who has ever opened it. Its pages are filled with flowing, elegant script, thousands of words in an alphabet that matches nothing else on Earth. Beside the text, strange plants twist across the parchment, unlike any species known to botany. Naked women bathe in pools connected by a plumbing of green tubes. Circular diagrams show stars and skies in patterns no astronomer recognizes. Nobody living can read a single word of it. Codebreakers who cracked German military ciphers in the Second World War have tried and failed. Modern artificial intelligence has been turned loose on it and failed. The question is not just what the book says. The question is whether it says anything at all. This is the story of the Voynich Manuscript. The book takes its name from Wilfrid Voynich, a Polish-American rare book dealer who purchased it in 1912 from a Jesuit college in Frascati, Italy. Voynich was already a colorful figure, a former revolutionary who had been imprisoned in Siberia before escaping and reinventing himself as one of the era's most respected antiquarian booksellers. When he acquired a collection of old manuscripts from the Villa Mondragone, one item stood apart from the rest. Voynich recognized immediately that he was holding something unlike anything he had handled before, and he spent the rest of his life trying to prove it was significant. But the manuscript's history did not begin with Voynich. Tucked inside the book was a letter, dated 1665, written by a Prague scholar named Johannes Marcus Marci to the Jesuit priest and polymath Athanasius Kircher. The letter claimed the book had once belonged to Rudolf II, Holy Roman Emperor, who reportedly paid a substantial sum for it in the belief that it was the work of the medieval English friar Roger Bacon. Rudolf was known for his obsessive collecting of curiosities, alchemical texts, and anything touched by the promise of hidden knowledge. If the letter is accurate, the manuscript had already been circulating among Europe's intellectual elite for decades before it vanished into obscurity for over 2 centuries. That is where documented history runs out and speculation begins. Between the 1600s and Voynich's purchase in 1912, the book's whereabouts are essentially unknown. It may have sat in the Jesuit archives the entire time. It may have passed through other hands first. The gap is real, and nobody has closed it. What we do know, thanks to modern science, is when the physical object was made. In 2009, researchers at the University of Arizona carbon-dated 4 samples of the vellum, the calfskin pages themselves, and found they dated to between 14400 and 438, placing the manuscript firmly in the early 15th century. This was a genuine breakthrough. It ruled out theories that the book was a later Renaissance forgery, and it ruled out Roger Bacon, who had died over a century before the vellum was even made. Analysis of the ink further supports the idea that the text was written not long after the pages were prepared, meaning this is very likely an authentic medieval document, not a fake assembled from old paper generations later. So we know roughly when it was made. We still do not know who made it, where, or why. Let's look at what's actually on the pages, because the physical structure of the book is as strange as its contents. The manuscript runs to about 240 surviving pages, written in a flowing, fluent script that researchers call Voynichese. The handwriting shows none of the hesitation you'd expect from someone laboriously copying an unfamiliar alphabet. It reads like natural, practiced writing. Whoever set this to parchment did so with fluency and speed. The book is divided into sections that scholars have labeled by their apparent subject matter. There is a botanical section filled with drawings of plants, roots, leaves, flowers, rendered in careful detail. The problem is that the vast majority of these plants correspond to no known species. A few resemble real plants loosely, but botanists who have studied the illustrations say most appear to be composites or inventions, mixing features that don't occur together in nature. There is an astronomical or astrological section, with circular diagrams resembling star charts and zodiac symbols, though the symbols and groupings don't match any known medieval system precisely. There is a section researchers call balneological, full of small nude female figures bathing in green pools, connected by an elaborate network of pipes and tubes that some have compared to human anatomy or plumbing systems, though no one agrees on what it depicts. There is a pharmaceutical section showing labeled jars and plant parts, suggesting recipes or preparations. And there is a final section of dense, uninterrupted text with small, star-shaped markers in the margins, which some believe may be a kind of index or key, though that too is speculation. Now to the puzzle at the heart of all of it, the writing itself. Voynichese consists of somewhere between 20 and 30 distinct characters, depending on how you count variants, used with startling internal consistency. Statistical analysis shows the text follows recognizable patterns found in real languages, word lengths, letter frequencies, and repetition rates that resemble natural speech rather than pure gibberish. Certain characters appear almost exclusively at the start of words. Certain patterns repeat with a regularity you'd expect from grammar, not randomness. This is precisely why it has resisted every attempt at translation. It behaves too much like language to dismiss, and too strangely to match any known one. Since Voynich brought the manuscript to public attention, an extraordinary range of people have tried to crack it. William Friedman, one of the most accomplished cryptanalysts in American history, a man who helped break Japanese military codes in World War II, spent decades of his career studying the Voynich text and never solved it. He came to suspect it might be some form of constructed language, an artificial system built from scratch rather than a cipher hiding a real one. Other researchers have proposed it's an elaborate substitution cipher for a known European language, though every specific proposed solution has collapsed under scrutiny, failing to produce consistent, meaningful translations across the whole text. Some have suggested it encodes an early Slavic or Near Eastern language written in an invented alphabet. In 2019, a researcher claimed to have identified it as a form of abbreviated medieval Latin. The claim received wide media attention and was swiftly and thoroughly rejected by Voynich scholars, who found the method arbitrary and unable to produce coherent translations. Modern computational linguists have run machine learning models against the text, hoping pattern recognition might succeed where human eyes failed. So far, none of these efforts has produced a translation that other experts accept as valid. And this brings us to the theory that unsettles the entire field. What if there's nothing to decode? Some researchers argue the manuscript could be an elaborate hoax, a meaningless string of invented characters designed to look like a language, created either to deceive a wealthy buyer like Rudolf II, or as some kind of intellectual game or forgery for profit. Statistical studies have shown that certain gibberish generation methods used in the medieval period, involving grids and tables of syllables, can actually produce text with some of the same statistical properties found in Voynichese. This means the "it looks like a real language" argument is not as airtight as it once seemed. Meaningless text generated through certain mechanical methods can still mimic natural language statistics. But the hoax theory has its own problem: motive and effort. Producing 240 pages of consistent, fluently written invented script, paired with elaborate illustrations, would have taken an extraordinary investment of time for a medieval forger, for uncertain reward. Vellum itself was expensive. This was not a cheap trick. Other researchers lean toward a more mundane explanation, that the manuscript is a genuine but now lost or highly unusual language or shorthand system, perhaps a private notation developed by a single scribe or a small community, never meant for outside readers and never widely used elsewhere, which would explain why it appears nowhere else in the historical record. There have also been proposals that it reflects an unusual, invented philosophical language, of the kind some medieval and Renaissance scholars experimented with, attempting to construct systems of writing based on logic or classification rather than natural speech. If true, the manuscript might not be hiding a message so much as demonstrating a system, an idea, rather than a text with content to reveal. Every one of these theories has defenders among serious scholars. None has produced verifiable proof. What remains undisputed is this: the vellum is genuinely medieval. The handwriting is fluent, not hesitant. The statistical structure of the text resembles real language more closely than most hoax methods would predict. Yet no proposed language or cipher has ever produced a translation that survives expert scrutiny. The plants don't match known species. The diagrams don't match known systems. And the 200-year gap in its ownership between the Holy Roman Emperor's court and a Jesuit college in Italy has never been documented. The manuscript sits now in Yale's Voynich Rare Book and Manuscript Library, digitized in full, available for anyone in the world to examine, page by page, letter by letter. Thousands have tried. The book has given up its vellum's age, its ink's chemistry, its scribe's fluency, and nothing else. Somewhere in those 240 pages, a person who lived 600 years ago either recorded something they urgently wanted preserved or spent months constructing an elaborate illusion of meaning. We have the exact words they wrote. We simply cannot read them. And that gap between having the message in front of us and understanding it is where the Voynich Manuscript still lives. If this kind of real, unresolved mystery pulls you in the way it pulls us in, subscribe to The True Unknown and join us for the next